Hello, I'm Joanna Cloy. Today I'm going to talk about furniture end of life and the environmental impacts of flame retardants. I'm a senior project manager at the environmental charity called FIDRA, and we influence positive environmental change using scientific evidence. We work collaboratively with a range of stakeholders, and our projects focus on chemical and plastic pollution. The project that I'm talking about today is our chemical flame retardants project, which is called Sustainable Fire Safety. It focuses on furniture in particular and the unnecessary use of chemical flame retardants in the UK. We are putting increasing pressure on our planet, and novel entities such as synthetic chemicals that we use in products are an increasing pressure. It is thought that 1 in 6 deaths are due to pollution. Harmful chemicals often have properties such as persistence. They bioaccumulate through food chains. They are found to be toxic and are often mobile, reaching areas of our planet where they have never actually been manufactured or used. Chemical flame retardant use in UK furniture is particularly high, and the public, wildlife and wider environment are exposed to high levels of chemical flame retardants because of this. Around 820,000 tonnes of flame retardants are used annually in the UK, much higher than other European countries. If we think of a typical sofa that you might find in a household, chemical flame retardants are used because they've had to comply with fire safety regulations. The chemicals get released during manufacture of that sofa. Once that sofa is in a person's home, they can migrate out of the sofa, especially if the flame retardants are additive flame retardants. They aren't retained strongly to the fabrics or the foam, and therefore people can inhale, ingest, even absorb the chemicals through their skin. Toddlers that crawl on the ground are particularly highly exposed to chemical flame retardants that have migrated from products. So we must keep people and wildlife safe from the release of these flame retardants by not using them in our products in the first place. The other issue is waste management. Sofas, upholstered seating cannot be disposed of through usual landfill. It must be incinerated to destroy persistent chemicals that are regulated. This makes materials lost and uncircular. They can't be recycled. So we also need to consider the impacts of exposure during the management of waste as well. And managing POPs in waste upholstered domestic seating is particularly challenging. POPs stands for persistent organic pollutants. 250,000 tonnes of waste upholstered domestic seating is produced each year in the UK, and they must be destroyed by incineration in order to protect the environment and people from chemicals that have been banned because they've been classified as POPs. Management can cost an additional £1 million a year to local authorities or councils, and disposal can typically cost £200 per tonne, but in some cases it can be up to £500 per sofa. For example, if waste upholstered domestic seating is classified as hazardous waste, not just POPs waste. Key issues include the need to segregate waste, the infrastructure required to deal with this type of waste, transportation, and then there's screening to try and identify which waste items contain POPs. Something called XRF, which is X-ray fluorescence technology, has been created to help rapidly detect POPs in waste upholstered domestic seating, but it isn't always a feasible option. Time and money is required. There's training, safety, and other operational challenges associated with the use of the technology. So that can't be used as an excuse to keep using harmful, persistent chemical flame retardants. Other considerations include chemical restrictions that are in place. And the EU is far more advanced compared to the UK since Brexit. More and more chemicals become classified as POPs or substances of very high concern. There's also regrettable substitution. For example, a chemical called deca-BDE, which was classified as a POP, was replaced with DBDPE, which is very similar and is likely to also be classified as a POP soon. So we will therefore need to keep incinerating our upholstered furniture until we eliminate harmful chemicals from them. Another design solution is the use of fire barriers, but in order to use these, we need the testing of furniture to be based on a composite test. So that's a test that tests the final item and its construction rather than the individual components. So fire barriers provide a protective layer protecting those flammable materials. And the benefits are the fact that you don't need to apply high levels of chemicals to the foam fillings, for example. This makes recycling easier and general end-of-life management. But how do we enable the use of innovative furniture design solutions? The most important step is revising our current outdated regulations. We must introduce new furniture fire safety requirements based on a smolder or cigarette test. We also must change the testing solutions to facilitate innovation and make proportionate scope adjustments to protect the reupholstery market and second-hand furniture. So the next steps, once those changes to the regulations are made, would be to enforce chemical labelling to support the sharing of data throughout supply chains, to make the identification of chemicals in waste easier. We also need better chemical restrictions with group-based approaches to avoid the replacement of current poorly designed chemicals with other poorly designed chemicals that will persist in the environment for years. So we know that there's synthetic chemicals that pose risks to human and environmental health, and that they're also a barrier to sustainable and circular furniture. The solutions that FIDRA seek are changes to the furniture fire safety regulations as soon as possible, extended producer responsibility schemes for furniture should also be used to promote more sustainable waste management practices and to put the responsibility onto the manufacturers. Chemical transparency along furniture supply chains would help improve circularity and end-of-life processing. But we need to keep supporting the progressive manufacturers and retailers that have already developed safe and sustainable alternatives that don't rely on persistent, harmful chemical flame retardants. So we can achieve furniture fire safety without chemicals. And this infographic just summarises the key steps that policymakers could take to help the UK keep up with the rest of Europe. Thank you for listening.